Everybody need. Okay, so we'll start again. Um, Carla, so tell us what led you to focus on pioneering leadership.
I had in the last 24 years, I had several leadership positions. And what I noticed is that I found all those positions in organizations not very human. And I was searching for a better way to relate. And that was one thing. At the same time, for 11 years, I had a yoga and meditation school. So it was a kind of balancing between head and feeling.
Hmm.
And and for I think about 10 years ago, yes, 10 years ago, I was in Florence for a retreat in a spiritual community, and I had an amazing experience.
Carla, je staat gemute.
Oh,
Yeah, I muted everybody because there's some background noise, but that also included you. So you were just before I muted you, you talked about you went on retreat and then I
yes,
silenced you. So if you
yes.
can start back there, that would be
I will start there. I was in a retreat, in a spiritual retreat, and I had an experience that was totally new for me. I had several before. I had several enlightenment experiences through meditation, but this experience was different because it was in action. It was in relationship and in talking with people, and it was an experience where there was no fear and no ego, nothing. And what happened to me was that I was in total bliss in 7 days. It lasted 7 days. And I thought, if I can do this, everyone can do this. And I thought about all the leadership positions and all the ego in the old power model we know. And I thought, how would organizations and relationships between people look like if we are free of fear and ego? So that was my starting point for writing my book, Pioneering Leadership.
Okay. Well, what just talk a little bit, dig in a little bit into that experience in terms of this sounds like what people were describing of living up to your potential or living into your potential. Could you describe a little bit more of the felt characteristics of what that was like so we can get
Yes.
a
Yes,
more
of
detailed picture?
course. It felt like a feeling of total happiness.
Total happiness.
And there was a quality that I wanted to know everything about things like cosmology and astrology and a lot of scientific things that I never heard about. And there was one other specific characteristic, and that was that when I was in a group of people, I could, I would know almost 1 minute before someone wanted to talk that I knew what this person would say. So
Right.
it was a kind of there was no time and space. It was different than we normally experience.
Well, that's I mentioned the word timeless in terms of these topics, but that is an actual experiential glimpse of timelessness, which
Yes.
I think relates to some of the freedom that you were experiencing or that deep sense of connection to yourself. Well, that's really beautiful. So you mentioned that you had leadership positions. and this was a turning point in your kind of relationship to leadership.
Yes.
Can you tell us, and I know that you went through a couple of phases of women's leadership and servant leadership. Can you describe what happened when learning from the experience you had, and then these phases you went through, and how that arrived to where you are now?
I know that when I was in the Netherlands from this retreat, I had a very big culture shock.
Right.
As I turned on the television, I couldn't see anything because it was all ego. It was people are arguing, and I turned off the television, and I almost never did it on again. That was
Wow.
one thing. Not feeling at home in organizations anymore, and not feeling at home at my friends, not feeling at home wherever. Because it was the culture shock was too big. But I had a lot of inspiration. So I decided to work on that.
Yeah. And so at first, I remember we had a little preparation, and you mentioned that you thought, okay, what I've discovered is perfect for women. So tell me about that phase, about you focusing this on women, and why you thought it was good for them, and then why maybe you broadened it out.
Yes, for women, what I discovered was that we are always in a position that we look at each other. I'm looking at my friend, and I think, oh, she is more beautiful than I am, or she is more intelligent, or I am more intelligent than the other girl, and it brings us women in a position that's always awkward. I experienced in the spiritual community that it was gone. And then I saw women as all equal and beautiful, authentic, and everyone had a special gift. So that was also a shift.
Right.
And why I think especially in the Netherlands, why it's so important for women to work on their leadership is that most men are in higher positions than women. And that means that all the desires of women about the future, about children, about whatever topic, about politics, about life, about society, are not they are not talked about.
Right.
So when you as a woman are going to interfere and take a next step as a woman, then you can change the world, your society, your neighborhood in the way you like.
Okay. And then I think we'll move on from that topic and talk about, what do you think, because some of the people in their introduction definitely identify themselves as pioneers or have been pioneering. What do you, because you've been interviewing, you've written a book, and then you've also interviewed a lot of pioneers. What would you say were the most core qualities or characteristics of pioneering leaders? What do you find that they have most in common with each other?
I wrote in my book about 21 qualities.
21.
21, yes, a lot. One of them is going out of your comfort zone,
Okay.
being on the edge, and being always curious about what is going on, letting go. One of the other qualities is that you are not knowing, so that you are not filling in for another one or in a discussion, that you are holding on to your own point of view.
Yeah.
What else? There are many. Self-reflective,
Self-reflective. Yeah.
one of the main items, I think,
Yeah.
because if you cannot reflect and see your inner world, you cannot create the outer world.
Yeah. Yeah.
How many do you like me to?
Well, you've mentioned letting go. You've mentioned not knowing. You've mentioned self-reflective. Just add two or three more, just to broaden it out.
Standing for your values.
Standing for your values. Yeah.
Yes, an important one. Creativity.
Creativity. Yeah.
And I think integrity is one.
Integrity. Okay, well, those are all great characteristics. And can you, apart from writing the book, can you give us an example or instance where, you know, you feel you've really fully shown up as a pioneering leader? Give us a practical example of how that shows up in regular life, you know, because I think we're very good at describing what should be there. We're not always particularly good at showing up as what we describe. And I include myself in that. It's not a criticism.
Yes, let's pick standing for your values.
Okay, yeah, yeah.
I always have 3 values, and that are kind of core values.
Yeah.
One of them is integrity for me, creativity, and freedom. That are my 3 core values.
Yeah.
And when someone touches those values, or a surrounding is not good enough for me because, for example, creativity is not in the room.
Yeah.
And it's kind of touching my spirit. It is kind of degrading my spirit.
Okay. Okay.
So what I do, I once worked in an organization, and there were a lot of protocols. There were a lot of people who didn't like their work. It was a kind of sick organization, quite at the culture and in culture. And there was no creativity at all.
Right.
So I felt that I have to go there. And this example was 15 years ago. So I decided, well, now is the time for me to be an entrepreneur. So I quit.
Yeah.
And that is how you can, if you know your 3 core values, then always when you have to make choices that are including them.
Yeah. So, well, that's an. I'm just going to dig into that point a little bit, because lots of organizations have values, or they claim they have values, and people will identify with the values that you've mentioned: creativity, integrity, and freedom.
Mm-hmm.
But how they show up, and I know that how people embody and live them is often at variance. So how can somebody own that for real? How do they end up owning that for real, rather than it's something that, like Caroline was talking about, being in a bubble? So we can think we have those values, but when the moment arises, we don't necessarily feel that we're being damaged, or we might not be in touch with them in the way that we think about them. So would you expand a little bit more on that?
You can find them by soul searching.
Soul searching. Okay.
Yes, and I found them after a few weeks soul searching.
Yeah.
And I know that these 3 are the main 3. but I'd like to say something more about it, because it's important to know what I did different when I knew and investigate in myself what those three meant for me. So you have to search the meaning of what is freedom for me, and integrity and creativity, because it's different than someone else.
Yeah.
Is that you have to that you cannot cheat with them.
Okay.
In Dutch we say sjoemelen. I don't know what that is in English, but
Humala.
Sjoemelen.
Humalen. Okay.
It's something you have to be true to yourself and to
Yeah.
those three values, and not, if you have integrity as at number one, that you'll think, well, I can cheat once and no one notices.
Yeah. So there's something about your capacity to be true to them, whatever's happened. That's what I think. That's what you're pointing to. Your capacity to be true to your deepest core values, whatever's going on. And really, the only way you can prove it is live it. You can only prove that you're not cheating yourself by living according to it. That's great. So I just want to switch tack a little bit, because in some of the preparation I've done for this, I've seen some emphasis that, and this is not so common in the leadership sector, I don't think, but you put emphasis on social impact now. I hope I've read that correctly. And I'm curious about, because everyone wants to have impact and create businesses that have impact and have more followers. So what is it about social impact that draws you, or what is it about making a social impact that that you prioritize or feel is important? I have a kind of similar interest myself, but I'd love to discover how that's occurring for you.
Yes. I wrote my book not only for managers and leaders, but also for everyone who is interested in creating a better world. And that's indeed not common.
No.
But how can we create this new world? That's because that is when we are going to go in action.
Yeah.
Entrepreneurs, for example, are a big group of people where the most of the pioneering people are.
Yeah.
Because they are mostly creative. They have to start and sometimes start again and again and again. And that makes them a good people to work with, I think.
Yeah.
Your question was about social impact.
Yeah. So those are the entrepreneurs, but social impact and entrepreneurship haven't always been particularly side by side one another.
No, I think it's time related. We are living in a time of many crises.
Yeah.
And people want to get to solutions and don't want to wait on politicians or what else. No, they are they have so many good initiatives, so many pioneering initiatives, that it's so important that they learn how to do this.
Yeah.
This whole process of pioneering.
Right. So I think this echoes back to some of what was being said at the beginning, is somehow being alert to what's going on in the world and having a deep passion to respond to that in a creative way. That's what I'm hearing.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. And then we've had 2 or 3 people that are kind of a little bit trying to find what the next phase for them is, or want to discover, or what advice, or if you're you've been pioneering but you're in a shift, what advice would you we're not going to do advice in the conversations, but what advice would you give to the audience around working their way through some turbulence, turmoil, confusion, stuckness, as it were?
I would advise to do some inner work and see not what is the problem with you, because that is mostly the one thing that we are thinking about. What am I doing wrong?
Yeah.
But another question, what can I improve in society with
Okay.
all my capacities that I am having?
Yeah. So, yeah, keep going. Say more.
Yes. So if you see this question, it's about our potential. It's about possibility, about innovation. And then you don't have to put emphasis on the other side, not on the ego side that is holding back our development.
So you wouldn't, because that's interesting, rather than focusing, say, you could say, if you stop focusing on your barriers and focus on possibility, like your own values or your own vision or whatever, but you're taking it really a step further than the personal. So I'm interested why you're not saying find your values and act according to them, or what's your highest potential. So why that little bit step outside of the personal sphere? Why look at society for that?
Because,
Where society needs you? What are you calling up for there?
Good question. Yes, I believe in visionaries.
Visionaries.
When you want a new world, an ideal world,
Yeah.
we need people who have a vision of how it can be different.
Right.
Because if we cannot imagine, if we cannot be creative, then there is nothing who gets inspired by you.
Okay.
So explore what your vision is and start there. And that's always bigger than you as a person.
Okay, well that's fascinating, because then the focus in a way on what society needs and the contribution I can make is two dynamics of making it bigger than it being a personal problem, or my vision, not realizing my vision is my fault, as it was. We beat ourselves up. That's what you expand a little bit more on that for us, Carla?
Yes, it's interesting, right? It's in my own experience, I can always feel stuck when when I'm working, and there's always a lot of things to do.
Yeah.
And too much work. But I have to be in contact with my vision, with what is pioneering leadership for me, what is it for other people, what is it for organizations, for other cultures. So when I see this in my experience, I have a vision. I have not a vision in where do I want to be in 5 years. That's what we in leadership courses learn a lot. I don't know where I am in a year. I cannot imagine where I am in 5 years. And it's not important for me. But I can but I can have a vision about how organizations can look. And that can be an inspiring moment, an inspiring vision for other people. I recently was nominated for an award for the Women in Media.
I voted for you.
Oh, thank you, Dave. And I was amazed because I didn't win the award, but but there were 200 people who had voted on me.
Oh, wow, that's great.
Yes, and I received all the motivations. And I was very happy with it, because I didn't know what people thought about me and my work. And all of a sudden, I had so many reviews about that because of my work, they changed their work, they had hope for a future. And I thought, whoa, this was a kind of motivation for me also.
Yeah, yeah.
To go further with my vision.
Wonderful. So I've got one final question to wrap up, and it's sort of what you're giving yourself an example. You've identified your core vision that is yours for now, that will continue to inspire you. How does somebody develop? Because in a way, that's a kind of anchor that goes beyond, relative. Like I worked for 30 years with young people. That calling or that generation went beyond all the everyday troubles and problems, and there were a lot of them. But that calling sustained me for 25 years in all kinds of circumstances. How does somebody find that? Because in a way, if you've not found, you might get stuck or feel troubled if you haven't identified that for yourself. How do they get there?
And you mean, how do they get to their life mission or purpose?
Yeah, well, yeah, there's something that is that will sustain them beyond the troubles of the day, the week, the month, the year.
Yeah. Next month I do a purpose challenge, especially for this group of people.
Okay.
And that's interesting because how do you find this? Most of the time we question ourselves, what do I want
Yeah.
with my life?
Yeah.
And how can I help other people?
Yeah.
But I turned the question around, and I'm more about one question, and that goes this: what will life catch from me, or
what will life?
What will life?
What does life want?
Life for me? What does life want from me? Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Sonia.
Yeah.
The process of emergency.
Yes.
What does life want from me?
From me.
Yeah.
Yes.
So it's
turn it around.
Yeah, turning it around and putting it into a more less personal perspective, as it were.
Yes, a bigger context.
Yeah. Okay, wonderful. Thank you so much. I'm going to